Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of NLL Lacrosse Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV Channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Joining me as usual is our co-host Gary Groob. Our guest today is Erik Turner of the Calgary Roughnecks. Erik, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. I think this has been like a little bit of a work in progress to make my schedule work to get on here. So I'm excited to be here, and I appreciate you guys accommodating my schedule so much.
Well, hey, it's our pleasure. Now, if only you could help me figure out what I can do with Microsoft and see if I can make it work.
I'm not your guy. I'm not your guy for that.
Holy mackerel. I mean, everything about this is a nightmare. I'll tell you, the internet is fun, but even more fun is doing documents when you're not a genius. Apparently, not even our producer can handle my problems. So no. I know I'm having a good time with this, and I do appreciate you being here. And we love to start by talking to everybody who comes on this program to give us an indication on how they fell into lacrosse, if they fell in or were dragged in or were pushed in. How was your situation with lacrosse?
I kind of came into it a combination of maybe all those words that you used to describe it. I was a pretty prototypical Canadian kid. I was playing hockey and my family moved from one area of the city to another when I was in about third grade. And a couple years later, my brother met a friend at our new school who talked about playing lacrosse in the spring. So my brother brought it home to my parents, and we had no idea what it was. Nobody in our family had ever played before. But the big kind of advertising push that they use in the Edmonton area is lacrosse is like the perfect summer sport for hockey players. So as soon as we kind of heard that tagline, I was like, all right, well, if it's going to help me as a lacrosse or as a hockey player, then I guess I'll play a little lacrosse in the spring and see what it's all about. And after one season, I was pretty all in. I was like a multi-sport guy. I played kind of everything competitively growing up, and lacrosse was the first kind of sport space that I felt like I could do everything that I like doing: run, hit people. There's like that skill element that's really high. The pace was awesome. So I pretty quickly, within a couple of years, kind of phased out of trying to pursue hockey at a high level and switch my gears to lacrosse.
So we know what got you in. What keeps you in?
I think all those things that I just described. And I think for me, lacrosse now has given me so much. A lot of what I do now is trying to give back to it. And I'm in a position now as a 31-year-old where I probably have less games in front of me than behind me. So it's just about a real appreciation for the game. I love to play. I train every day just because I love having my stick in my hands. I love being on the floor. And I think that passion has kind of fueled me through all these years that I've been playing and kind of projected me to all the great opportunities that I've been so fortunate to have.
Now you're going to be watched in front by Gary. Gary.
Work
him in the slot, baby. Work him in the slot.
We'll talk about all the videos and all the work ethic and stuff like that because they're just incredible to watch. Talk about leading by example. But I want to go back a little earlier. Minor lacrosse, you would say St. Albert, the Rams and UE Midget. Let's talk a little bit about the programs, the coaching, and what was most influential into your development.
Well, so the cool part for me right now is the first lacrosse game that I ever saw was a Calgary Roughnecks game in Calgary. So the Rams used to do this thing where they would organize a big coach bus where you'd pay your way and you would get to go down to Calgary, watch an NLL game and come back. And it was a really good kind of driver for us. And especially for my family, since we had never seen lacrosse before and it was organized by our local minor association, we were able to go to this game and see lacrosse for the first time at the highest level. And that really helped cemented for me. That was before my first season. I was like, okay, this is really awesome. This is a cool environment. This game is really cool. And then the other thing that really helped me in that first year really fall in love with the game was we hosted the Minto Cup in Edmonton that year. Six Nations ended up playing Burnaby in the final, and it was that Burnaby team was stacked. The Six Nations team was stacked. It was Cody Jameson's year. All these guys were on the team. So the lacrosse atmosphere there was unbelievable in the final. So those two big events early on really helped cement like my excitement about lacrosse, because I got to see two of the biggest kind of profile things that happened in our game within my first year of playing. I was really lucky that I had a variety of really good coaches going up through minor. Some of them were just parents who had no lacrosse experience, but they just did a really great job of keeping it fun and keeping it exciting for me. And then as I progressed within our space, we've had some really great people who have played at the highest level and have coached for a long time, who have been willing to give back. Guys like Jimmy Quinlan, Jamie Bowen, Paul Rye, John Lintz now is super influential in our space. And I was really lucky that I got to be coached by a lot of those guys locally while I was growing up. So I was really fortunate, and I think our community is really fortunate that those guys are still doing it. I mean, I've been playing for 20 years now, and those guys have been coaching as long as I can remember and being involved. So they've set like a really good example for guys like myself who have grown up in our space to kind of come and continue to do that. So I was really fortunate. I feel really, really fortunate that I got to be coached by the guys that I did, and playing in the space that I did. I was obviously able to kind of grow and develop as a player to be able to reach the things that I would kind of wanted to achieve within the game.
Well, you were very successful there too, right? Multiple city championships, provincial championships, excuse me, selected 4 times to Team Alberta, under 19 team captain. Let's just talk about some of those years and just the honors, especially being named captain. That's a long journey upward to the top.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, my first 2 years, I was lucky to be a part of like really good teams. And I think like for me, my early stages of my lacrosse career, I was not skilled, as most people aren't. Like some people come to it really naturally, the stick skill piece. I wasn't that way, but I was really athletic because I played so many different sports. So I could play defense pretty well. So I was like a big egg and spoon, run the floor guy, but I could at least defend some high profile guys pretty well. And that's kind of where I was able to kind of find my role within some of these higher level teams. And I think in the first 2 years, winning like was a big part of what made me excited about it. Like I said, like my first 2 seasons, we won cities, we won provincials. So being a part of a successful team early on with older guys who had played for a while and kind of knew what it was all about, because I came to the game pretty late. I was like 11 or 12 years old. And I know, talking to like my teammates from BC and Ontario, some of them start when they're like 3. So I was relatively late to it. So being around those guys early really helped. And then I think just for me early on, like I wasn't a very like vocal leader, but first time I was selected as a captain for Team Alberta, it came kind of as a surprise to me, because I had just kind of gone about my business. I was just trying to work hard and earn my way onto the team. I think I was only like a 3rd or 4th year lacrosse player at this point. So I was just focused on trying to do things the right way and compete hard when I had opportunities. And a coach kind of came up to me and said, like, you're one of those guys that doesn't speak a lot, but when you speak, guys are going to listen because you do things the right way. So that always kind of stuck with me. And it's kind of been the way that I've tried to approach things for a good chunk of my career now.
Right. We're going to keep coming back to this word of character. It's all about character. And, your character, it shines. It's everything I've seen over the years. But I imagine it started in there as well. Just your character of being a hard worker and leading by example, really.
Yeah, and I think I'm really fortunate again that my parents, I mean, they didn't have any lacrosse background, but they both were athletes growing up and played at various levels. Nothing super crazy, but I think they just both had a really good handle on what things kind of needed to look like. And they did a like real admirable job of putting me in positions to learn from people within the sport that could set a good example and kind of show me this is how things kind of are done at the highest level. Like going in grade 11, being able to go to the Hill Academy in Ontario, for them to provide that opportunity for me and create a space where I was able to do that was really awesome. And like I said before, I was just really fortunate to be surrounded by great kind of like mentors and leaders that I kind of pulled from. And when you like step back and really observe guys who are doing things that maybe you want to achieve, you can really pick out some trends and some themes on how guys operate. And I mean, being around Brody Merrill at the Hill, Pat Merrill at the Hill,
right,
some of these other really high profile guys that I've been fortunate to be in the same space of and learn from. There's some things that they do that are pretty easy to pick up on quick, and you want to try to emulate, because those guys have achieved amazing things within our sport.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go a little bit more on the hill. We've had a lot of guys from the hill on, a lot of coaches from the hill on. Talk about that program for yourself and your development, and then I want to get into Brody's input towards you moving further.
I think the Hill Academy was like a critical kind of catalyst to my opportunity to play collegiate lacrosse, because I attended a different academy that's local to Edmonton that's done a really good job locally for our kids, called Vimy Ridge, for my grade 10 year. But at that time, and we're getting a lot better at it in Alberta now, but even still, like, our community is much smaller than what's in Ontario. The talent pool is much smaller. So the opportunity to go and be in that like high level environment and train around an entire group or entire team full of guys that are really focused and kind of on the same track was really, really valuable. And just that like competition level, because I mean, coming out of Alberta, you get to a certain point, you're one of the better players in that space. But when you're trying to like achieve something like going to NCAA Div 1 or playing professionally, you need to be surrounded by the guys outside of your community that are the top end. So being able to go into there, and it was a huge wake-up call for me. I was coming out of being like one of the better players in Alberta, and then you go to this really high-profile, high-level space where you're kind of just one of the guys in the mix, and there's guys that are way better than you doing things. So it was a really big growth and personal growth opportunity for me, and it was hard. It was hard as a 16-year-old to live away from home for the first time, but it kind of really helped me start to understand some of the things that I needed to address within my game, and just as an athlete to help me kind of achieve that next level.
Also helping you academically too for your next
step,
because without the grades, you're not going to any of these Division I schools or any of that.
Yeah, and I think for me, like I was a good student all the way through high school, so that part wasn't as much of a concern for me. I knew I was going to be pretty good grades wise. I think the class formatting that the Hill provides is good, because it's more like a collegiate prep style thing than it is like just a typical high school, right? Like when I went back for grade 12 to my local public school before I went away to school, the formatting is just not as similar to like what a collegiate kind of environment's going to be like. So I think being in that situation was really, really helpful. But yeah, I mean, again, when you have the right people talking to you, they express really early that you better be tight on your grades and you better be focusing your energy there, because without that, no doors can be open. So that was one of the biggest things. That was a real asset for me through my recruiting process. And I made it pretty easy on a lot of coaches, I think, to be at least interested in me, because my transcript was really strong and my grades were really strong, and they didn't really have to worry about trying to fight to get me in anywhere. I was kind of taking care of that piece.
Well, I think it's really imperative now if you want to become a professional that you do have prep school, because nowadays there's many more options than before. You're talking about Vimy and the Hill Academy, but now we have, of course, Crowley in Vancouver. We got Chris Panos from Fort Union, Tom Marichek in the States, Everest is out here, as well as the Hill. So yeah, it's a must to get ready for that next level, I think.
Yeah, and they offer just such a more like tailored and high profile kind of experience. Like I've always thought Alberta is a little bit unique, where ours are like directly integrated within our schools, whereas like the Hill Academy is a dedicated space for that. Like these academies that exist in Edmonton have kind of integrated themselves with a public school. So the Lacrosse Academy at Vimy is like a separate entity that operates within the school itself. So you're getting credit for playing lacrosse essentially in substitute for your phys ed. Whereas like a Hill Academy, I think the main differential is like the Hill Academy plays as the Hill Academy. Whereas a lot of these other programs, like in Edmonton, Vimy doesn't really compete under the Vimy banner. Some of these other places, like you don't get that. So it's more of like a skill training style environment, where more and more of these opportunities where you're not only training under a coaching staff and with high level players, but also getting the opportunity to compete and play under that banner are popping up. And I think that's really awesome. I think just the more and more guys that have kind of achieved that level from their space and are willing to kind of build something and give back and hopefully help get a new wave of guys to that level and even beyond is amazing. So I think all these places that are popping up, it's just cool to see the growth of that and the prioritization on it.
The difference.
You went back home, and you went back to the St. Francis Xavier, and captain of the Xavier team as a senior. But you also were playing basketball, 4-time letterman there as well. So yeah, multi-sport athlete at a high level.
Yeah. Well, I think my parents had a basketball background. It's one of the sports that they both played growing up. And they recognized pretty quickly, they didn't know a lot about lacrosse, but after we watched a couple, like the Minto Cup, we watched an NLL game, I started watching it more. Mm-hmm. They really quickly picked up on the fact that a lot of the systematic stuff and the tactics were very similar to basketball. So pretty quickly they were like, well, if you're going to we have a huge off season in Edmonton for lacrosse. And most of Canada does. Like the season that you play in is pretty short. So you need stuff to do in the off season. So they suggested pretty quickly that if I was looking for a good supplement, I mean, lots of kids do hockey, but I switched to doing a lot of basketball because I was more kind of in line with wanting to run the floor and play defense and all those kind of things. And I think it was, exactly. It was just a really good space. And even now, like, I think the best training tool that I've kind of found lately is playing like pickup style basketball, because it eliminates the risk of me getting cross-checked in the spine while somebody's like setting a pick on me, but I can work on my defensive communication. I can work on a lot of the same kind of sets that offenses are going to run against us defensively. So for me as a defender, pickup basketball has been a great tool. But I mean, I loved playing basketball for my local club and for my school. I thought that was just like the best time. I see kids doing it now. I'm like, that's such a cool experience to have, being able to play for your school, playing those tournaments, traveling with those guys. I really had a fun time, and I definitely enjoyed my basketball career while I had one.
Right.
Erik, can you help me to understand lacrosse in Alberta? You know, when we go to Ontario, you know, there's all these towns, you know, starting with Peterborough or Toronto. What's in Alberta as far as hotbeds are concerned for lacrosse? Are there any? And because I could imagine it might make it more of a challenge to be a player.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely not in Ontario. You know what I mean? Like it's a much smaller community. I would say, like, when you just look at the numbers in our space, Sherwood Park is currently our biggest club. I think they had over like 500 players this year, which is big for an Alberta program to have. So I think like really what kind of happens is I wouldn't say we have like a hotbed in terms of like a Peterborough, Orangeville, those kind of things where you see like a ton of guys coming out of, because Edmonton is a little bit of a different landscape too. Like you have Edmonton itself, and then you have just these little offshoot kind of communities that are all within like 15 minutes of the city. So it's kind of Edmonton is just the hub. But what you will see is you'll see like waves of guys, and it's kind of just dependent on if there's like a parent who played at a high level who coaches a group for an extended period of time. So like there's a big wave of guys that are playing collegiate lacrosse right now that all grew up playing together, and they had like really strong coaching all the way through. So we have like quite a few guys that kind of get back into the space because their kid is playing, and then their kids' friends are all on the team and they coach for a long time. So you kind of just see these waves go through it. It's definitely grown a lot over the last few years, just in terms of the like profile of players that are starting to come out of Alberta, because I think the coaching has improved pretty dramatically. There's a lot more guys that I think are giving their time that have like played in college or played somewhere, and know kind of what it should look like. And that's been really cool to see. Even just looking at the guys that we have in college right now. When I was going to school, I think there was maybe like 2 of us in the city that were playing NCAA lacrosse in the city. Now we have enough where it's like in the winter when these guys come back, we could have all of them train together, and there's probably going to be like 22 of them on the floor. So it's gotten a lot better. And for me, as somebody who like really takes the coaching piece pretty seriously, that's like really, really neat to see. And you kind of try to keep that in perspective all the time of, hey, like what we're doing is having an impact, because you're seeing more and more of these guys have opportunities, whereas before it was such a small pool of us that kind of found our way out of there.
Yeah, even now, it's becoming more, where you're getting Albertans getting drafted to the NLL, and they're more, NLL ready, if you will, if I could use that term.
Totally. And I mean, I think like you look at our junior A program in Edmonton right now,
yeah,
run by John Lintz. He's like I don't even know how many years he's played in the NLL now. I'm probably doing him a disservice, but it's probably like 15, I want to say, at least. A couple championships, and he's just done like a really, really awesome job of building that junior A program. He's got a really good coaching development mindset because he's an educator. He works as a teacher, so he gets what it kind of should look like. He gets what a high profile, like well-run program should feel like. He's been a part of a bunch, and he's really invested in helping guys get there. He's running some training groups right now locally for a bunch of us who are either getting ready for NLL camps or getting ready to try to make a junior A roster. He's done a lot over the last few years, and that organization overall, there's so many people that are really doing a great job in our space. And I think they've been just like the most critical component to seeing all these guys. I feel like this NLL draft has got to be the most Edmonton area guys that has ever been drafted. And you're getting guys drafted in the first round now, and things that just were never happening before. So it's pretty cool to see. There's still a lot of work to do. We have a long way to go before we're consistently kind of being in that conversation around a BC or Ontario in terms of strength. And it's going to take a lot of work to get anywhere close to that. But the progress that's been made over the last few years is pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, we always talk about standing on the previous generation's shoulders.
Yeah.
Right? And now you've got an opportunity where, there's more shoulders to stand on if you're a lacrosse player in Edmonton or Alberta in general.
Yeah. And I think really for a lot of us who are like maybe a little bit more tenured in our careers now.
Gary, he's talking about being 31 and
I know.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Wow. I gotta be careful.
Sorry, Erik, you're so old, man. Sorry, I really.
It's been an interesting shift.
I just couldn't resist jumping on that. I apologize.
No, it is always it's been an interesting shift for me recently because, like, I know that there's tons of opportunity for me and things. I feel really good. I feel like I got a lot of years left to play at a high level, but the shift, even this summer, being in an Adnax dressing room where you're seeing a bunch of guys that are just fresh out of college, they're 22, they're 23, just kind of at the surface level of it. And now I'm like a 31-year-old. They look at me as like an elder statesman, being called dad on the team and things like that. I'm just like, this has happened really fast. It feels like.
Yeah. It does.
But in your defense, and you're not taking any claim to this, but I'm going to say this, and that is, the older you get, the smarter you get about the game, the more experience. I get it. The legs don't react as quick as they used to. The reflexes and all that. Your knees don't like it as much. Your shoulders, and as being a defender, your shoulders are probably a little tired. But sometimes, there's that part where you learn the game. Now you get to do what you were talking about, which is helping those younger players. So, being an asset at 31, you're still not that old. I mean, we've seen some players, right, Gary, that are in their 40s that are still playing. Yeah. I mean, I admire them, and I'm not suggesting that you should be playing till you're 40. That's your decision. But I'm just saying sometimes what's between the ears helps a lot, right?
Yeah, and I think the part that's been really fun for me over the last few years, and you talk about like Alberta development versus some of these other spaces, is actually starting to like understand the game a little bit more instead of just trying to like muscle your way through it because you're athletic. As you get into like some of these higher level concepts, I tell kids this all the time when I'm coaching them, is like, if you can get the barrier of the stick work piece out of the way, then you're really going to start having fun with lacrosse, because you actually get to start to learn how to play the game and learn all these systematic things and all these cool nuances that teams are doing and all these sets. As soon as you can confidently like catch, pass, throw, all that stuff kind of without having to think about it all the time, the game becomes really, really cool when you really start to look at the higher level stuff that's going on. So for the last like 5 or 6 years, kind of learning that through my NLL experience, my senior A experience, starting to learn these like base sets that all these teams are doing and how you can counter it as a defender. That's been really fun, and starting to learn how to like scout other players and things that they're doing and watch film. that's where I'm really enjoying things right now, because it's so expansive, and it's a lot of fun to kind of explore that side of the game.
Now you go to Cornell. You were primarily a box player, though, weren't you?
Yeah. I didn't start playing. I really didn't start playing field lacrosse until high school, and that's like Alberta field lacrosse, which is like we barely play field, to be honest. We don't have any time. Right. Like there's the weather's bad for it. We had like a couple travel teams that would go and do events in the U.S., but I was very surface level in my play or understanding of anything field lacrosse. So the Hill Academy was a huge help to try to get like a crash course at the whole thing. But I went into Cornell very raw as a field player, very
now
raw.
Now the learning starts. Division One,
yeah,
with guys who've been playing it their whole life, and here you are trying to figure out field. That had to be an experience and a half.
Yeah, and I think like for me as a Canadian going down there, I mean, we have like a pretty specific style, obviously that is converted just from the box game. And I mean, looking at my career now as a box player, I think positionally I probably would have done better as like a D midi or maybe even like putting a pole in my hands. But coming out of Alberta, like everything I did, I was like a midfielder, like an offensive midfielder, because I was relatively big, relatively athletic, and just in the space, that position made the most sense for me. So, and then kind of as a Canadian, when you're going into all these things, into American heavy programs, usually you kind of get labeled as like an O guy. Like you're the box guy. You should be able to finish and do all these things. And I mean, I didn't really have a really good left hand at all. I was very right-handed. Again, my stick work wasn't fantastic. I was just like an athletic guy that could kind of run around and do some stuff. So the first like 2.5 years of my Cornell career were like, I got to figure out how to play at this level. I need to develop my skills. I need to get stronger. I need to get in better shape. It was just like a huge learning curve, Cornell, I think was probably the hardest 4 years that I've experienced as a player, just because I was not having a lot of like individual success. Our team was awesome. Like we had some really, really great players, but in terms of individual success and seeing any kind of progression, I was having a pretty hard time. So that was a really kind of tough stretch, but it was probably the most important 4-year experience that I've had, because I got to be around guys like Rob Pennell and all these other great high profile guys, where I really got to learn like, this is what elite level work ethic looks like. This is what the top guys are doing to develop their games. This is how they're operating. These are the choices that they're making to be this good. So that really, really helped me in my post-collegiate career in the pursuit of being a pro at the NLL level.
Right. Let's get on to the NLL. Interrupted, of course, by COVID, which shut down the whole world. My question to you is, during that time, how did you keep yourself occupied with the stick? Get ready for
that stretch. I mean, so Cornell was really tough for me mentally. That stretch, I think, was maybe equally or more difficult, because my first like big push at playing Senior A was the summer before kind of COVID started to hit, and I tore my ACL in the preseason game. So I was out for a year, like recovering from that injury. I was able to come back the following season and play about half the games and play pretty well. So I got the invite to Mammoth training camp, and that's where I made my first roster as a practice roster guy. And then halfway through that initial season, being in the NLL, COVID happened and shut the whole world down, but the league specifically for like 2 years. So I was kind of like, come on, like I just worked my way back from this knee injury. I just kind of battled through getting to this level, and now like we don't even know if we're going to play, when we're going to play. But I think that time period was really huge for me because I had enough time in the NLL and with Senior A to kind of have an understanding of like, okay, if I'm actually going to be a full-time active roster guy, these are the areas that I really need to focus my attention. So during that COVID shutdown, I was like training like a madman. I was really fortunate to be, I mean, in the area that I was, we had availability to get into like training facilities, and there was like enough outdoor rink spaces and things that I could go to. So I was really in like however long that shutdown lasted for. I was basically just training every day. I was just in like a little bit of a Rocky style, like isolation of just training and trying to get as good as I could and as strong as I could. So when that all kind of processed through, I was doing like a lot of individual work and just kind of some stuff with some guys in the area as much as we could. But when I came out of that, I came back to Mammoth training camp the following kind of year, whatever that was, a very different player, way more kind of refined, a lot stronger, a lot more kind of like ready to go. And I was able to kind of make that first active roster spot. So that time frame for me was like really transformational. And I mean, it sucked. It sucked not being able to play and not having the regular routine. And all of us were kind of battling X, Y, and Z through that time frame. But in terms of my development as a player and my skill development and all those kind of things, it was really crucial time for me.
There's the word again, character. Yeah. Now, my favorite question to ask is, was your first training camp what you expected?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of went in with not a lot of understanding or foundation on what it's going to look like. I just knew that I was going to have to go in there, similar to the approach that I had taken throughout a lot of my career. And it was like, you basically don't have anything to lose at this point. You just have to go in, work as hard as you can every moment that you have an opportunity on the floor, and kind of take it like one day, one practice at a time, and just embrace it all. So I went in with like a very like curious mindset. I was really excited to learn and be at that space. And that was kind of the culmination of a long time of putting a lot of work in to just try to be there. And I was like, if I get to training camp, I play as hard as I can, and I try to do everything I can, and they decide that I'm not a good fit. I can live with that, but I at least want to know I had an opportunity. So I just went into it kind of with a nothing to lose mentality, a real open mind to trying to learn as much as I could. And I was really fortunate that they saw something in me that they wanted me to be a part of that team. And really that was the stepping stone for me coming back out of the pandemic break to earn my spot onto the active roster and be a part of a championship team. So training camps in the NLL are intense. They're very intense because you only get that. It's like 4 weeks, but really it's 4 weekends. So you're doing like 2-a-day sessions. You're trying to get the majority of your preparation and your team kind of solidification done in those 4 weekends, because once the season starts, you're practicing the day before the games. You're not getting a lot of time together. This is like the chunk of time where you're going to get the most opportunity to be around each other, to implement things, to really kind of grind through preparation and training. So it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, but it's intensive. It's very intensive. And I think that's the part that I think caught me off guard the most, is at the pro level, practicing in the morning hard, scrimmaging in the evening hard, like just the intensity of it. I was pretty impressed by, and how hard guys go all the time.
Right. Now you come out into the Loud House, and it's just that 15,000 people. And what's the feeling as soon as you walk out? And wow, it's not.
I mean, it's I would be very, very shocked and impressed if somebody was able to run into that environment and not be just like buzzing off the walls. Like it just feeds you, like as especially playing as the home team, you just feed off the energy. And people are there like right as warm-ups start. Like the first time that we hit the floor, we're just in our helmets and gloves. There's people already on the glass getting us fired up. They're so excited about it. That fan base is really awesome to play in front of when you're part of the Mammoth, and they will let you have it when you're not. I remember my first time going back when I was part of the Desert Dogs. I was getting some friendly welcomes, but a lot of the opposite. They're passionate. They're a loyal fan base, and playing in those atmospheres is just something you can't replicate. That feeling of running onto a floor like that and being in that atmosphere. You want to play at your best. You embrace the excitement around how many people are there to watch it and all those kind of things. And there's nothing better than making a play in front of people who all want to see you make a play, so right. That was really fun.
you were part of something really magical. That's that team too,
Yeah.
with them winning the championship. But more so, and in my eyes, because I was in Buffalo at the time, in the press box, being able to shut up 19,000 people.
Yeah.
That you could hear a pin drop in that building when you guys won the championship. That was something I don't think I'd ever experienced. Was one is how crazy that place can be, but how quiet that place could be too.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's somebody asked me the other day, like, how was that experience? And to me, it's still pretty surreal. It's still pretty surreal. I remember getting down onto the floor and us being able to celebrate the championship as a group, and it just kind of felt like you said we were surrounded by so many people, but it just kind of felt like a dream. It definitely felt like a dream, and I mean, like I said, from all the things that had kind of happened previous to that, my knee injury, the pandemic, for us to kind of come back and to be able to achieve that when I think we were definitely not considered the favorites, especially after.
And you had all your offensive.
Well, and I just like
everybody was
just and it was just one of the coolest like team sport experiences I've ever had because like we lost Leeser in the Western Conference Championship like I think before Game 3. It was like he's just such a critical part of that like the offensive success, and then just seeing guys step up just all the way through. Eli goes down after Game 1 of the finals, our second leading scorer, just trying to make a play, being the intense competitor that he is, trying to make a play at the end of the game, ends up getting hurt. So we have like Sam Firth, who I was lucky to play with in Vegas for a couple of years after that. Never played an NLL game, gets inserted into the lineup, scores a goal. Like just like the kind of depth and guys rising to the occasion and everybody really buying into like we're gonna do whatever it takes to get there. It was just really special to be a part of. And I always have the perspective, especially talking to some of those guys that were a part of that team. There was guys on that team who had never been to a finals and they'd been in the league for 12 years. So for me to achieve that and be a part of that in just my second year kind of as an NLL player, I will forever be eternally grateful for how that all worked out because it's so hard. It's so hard to win. That league is, I mean, our league is so hard to win in, just like most pro leagues are. But there's guys that have played for so long that have never had a chance. So the fact that I get to kind of carry that label around with me forever now is pretty special.
Now you get over to Las Vegas for the expansion team there. What was it like working with Sean Williams?
I was lucky that I got to be around Willie my first year in Colorado. He was the O coach when I was on the practice roster. So I got to just kind of see a little bit of what he was all about. And the story that always sticks out to me about him is, like, I'm a practice roster guy. I know I'm not going to be playing on game days. So I would always go and train like right before the game. I would get my workout in because I'm like, I'm not playing. I got to try to get something in here. And every time I would go to the gym, Willie would be down there. And he's just a coach. He's not playing anymore. But he was working out so hard. Like, I was so impressed with the way that he was pushing himself and like the intensity. You could just see why he was as successful of a player as he was in his playing career. But also just like the kind of man that he is and the way that he carries himself. So that always really stood out to me. So when I had the opportunity to go to Vegas and play under him, that was really exciting. And Willie is like a real genuine guy that I think leads with love and based on what he's dealt with. He has a lot of care and appreciation for everything that kind of goes on, and his approach and his, like, the way that he's holding that team accountable and the way that he's doing things there. It's going to be not too long, I don't think, before there's a lot of success in Vegas. There's a lot of buy-in. He's a guy that you love to play for, and he's a real like genuine person that I have a real deep appreciation for.
Right. Now you get released, and here come all the videos of you training, and I knew you were going back in the NLL. There was no way with that heart and that commitment. There was no way you weren't coming back. And now you get a chance with Calgary this year. I have my Roughnecks shirt on for you.
Oh, there you go. Right on.
But what was told to you when you signed with them? What's expected? Because now again, you're one of the veterans on a team that's rebuilding. So, what's your role?
Yeah, I'm not really super sure on what my role is going to be. I think that's going to come from kind of with the layout once we get into training camp. I mean, I'm going in as a guy that's like trying to earn his way back in,
Right.
and I think all my conversations that I've had with Coach Sanderson at this point have been just around like they're excited to have me because they've heard about my character. They think that's going to be a huge asset to the space. And right now, the expectation is simply just come in and be prepared to compete for a spot. So I think I feel really fortunate that what they saw from me this summer and motivated them to feel like I could be an asset to the organization. But I'm in a position where until I'm on the final roster, I'm kind of on the outside looking in. So I'm feeling really excited about the dynamic and getting to be in a new space. Lots of guys that I've kind of got to interact with, but never have really gotten to play with. That I really look at as top end guys, and obviously have a lot of reverence for the organization itself because it introduced me to the game, and it's local to Alberta where I live, which is really exciting. So I'm just excited to go in there and hopefully like my approach and my work ethic and kind of the way that I compete fits in well. And hopefully I think what I've really tried to embrace over the last little while is, especially with maybe a team that's going to be a little bit younger, just helping some of these younger guys kind of find their way a little bit.
Now, the time off actually gave you a chance to do something a lot of guys don't do, and something I love is the Alice Trubetsky tournament. I've been going the last couple of years with the Gales, so you get a chance to play in there with the Alberta team. Talk about your experience there.
Yeah, so I actually got to go. That was, I think, my fourth trip to Prague. Oh, yeah. So when I first graduated college and was undrafted and wasn't playing in the NLL and just trying to pursue it, I got introduced to this tournament that I had never heard of. That it happens in this small town, really like the greatest lacrosse experience of all time, which it definitely fits the bill. It fits all the hype that people put on it. And I think coming off of the experience in Vegas, being released, that was obviously really, really tough to deal with, but it's something that can happen at this level. So having the opportunity to go down to Prague and play with a bunch of local guys. And I mean, the biggest piece of it that was really special this year and different from previous years is my younger brother came and played on the roster with me. And we're like 3.5 years apart. So we've never really got to play anything competitively together except for like 2 years of junior lacrosse. He's a really high level football guy. So he kind of phased out of lacrosse to pursue that. So the opportunity to go down there, spend the whole week with him in Europe, his first time in Europe, coming out of kind of lacrosse retirement to come in and help me have like a really, really cool experience with the game after dealing with something pretty tough. That was really awesome. And I think we, as a team, feel like we fell a little short of our goals, losing to the host team in the semifinal game. But it's always a blast playing over there. I'm so impressed with how they run that tournament and the community that comes out and cheers for it. And just being able to be there and see all the guys that are part of that kind of tournament circuit that I don't really get to be around as much anymore with the NLL schedule. It was a really great time. And I would always encourage anyone who has the opportunity to go to play in the Hrabetsky to go, because it's so special and it's just such an amazing place that people obviously go back to year after year after year if they can for a reason. So really awesome.
Now, we only have a couple of minutes left, and I want to talk a little bit about your coaching. And you've got 10 plus years as a coach. Currently, you're with Parkland Posse.
Yeah. Right? So this past spring, I was the technical director for the Parkland Posse, which is just a minor club in Edmonton, or in the Parkland County area. that plays as part of the GLC. That opportunity kind of just got generated because I had moved back home after being released from Vegas, and was kind of in a little bit of a limbo because I had an employment contract with Vegas where I was doing a lot of the community coaching there and stuff like that. So I was kind of in a space where I was trying to find what the next kind of opportunity and space that I was going to work in was, and just got into an organic conversation with the vice president of the club, and it kind of presented some of my ideas around how I think things could be done a little bit differently in the Edmonton area for these clubs to make the player experience a little bit better.
Right. Sure.
And they liked what I had to say. So we started to implement some of those things, and that was really fun. It was really fun to be on the floor with the kids. I worked from U7 all the way up to our junior team through the club, working with coaches, working with players. It's like 4 to 5 hours a night on the floor, just kind of buzzing from practice to practice, working with these coaches and kids. And it was a lot of fun. And I think for me in the coaching realm, because coaching has kind of provided me the pathway to be a full-time lacrosse player. I came out of school thinking I was going to be a teacher. So coaching has kind of become the vehicle where I can be an educator through the sport that I love. So I've been able to work in so many different spaces, and I think the only frustration with it is you don't have a lot of continuity sometimes when you're kind of grinding, trying to be a coach full time. So this Parkland situation is hopefully going to be kind of a fix to that, where I get to see these kids year after year, work in the same organization. It's right in the community that I live very close to. It's where the gym that I do my strength work is. And I think they have a really, really good foundation for building a really strong club. Their numbers are good. People are bought in. People are excited about the ideas that we're trying to implement. I'm just excited to see where it goes. Because, like I said, there's a lot of kids. The kids that I got to interact with and meet this year in the club all love the game. So as soon as you have that as a foundation, everything else kind of takes care of itself.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time, and I wish you the best of luck in training camp with Calgary and for a great year upcoming. Should be terrific. And I look forward to seeing really big things from you, especially in your role as a mentor on that team.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And I really appreciate you guys' time and having me on here. And thanks for always promoting our great game.
It's our pleasure. It's really a pleasure meeting you. And by the way, I figured out my Word document. Got that done.
Let's go.
Hey, man, holy mackerel. It's just like when you go back to the bench and the coach says, good job. Yeah. It was really a pleasure meeting you. And listen, good luck with the rest of your career. And I can see you got one foot in coaching. And I hope all goes well for you this season as well.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Erik. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks very much, Frank. Always great talking across.
For Erik Turner and Gary Groob, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Lacrosse Talk, seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Lacrosse Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next Thursday. Pick up a stick. You might actually enjoy it.